So if you could turn in your Bible with me and follow along. Chapter 2, verse 12, we are told of the way of evil. That's how it's described. In chapter 2, verse 20, he says, "So you will walk in the way of the good and keep to the paths of the righteous." That's the other side. The way of the righteous, or the way of the good. In chapter 4, verse 11, we read these words, "I have taught you the way of wisdom." That's the path. It's described that way. That's the way. "I have led you in the paths of uprightness." And in chapter 4, verse 14, you read the other side. "Do not enter the path of the wicked. Do not walk in the way of the evil." And verse 19, "The way of the wicked is like deep darkness. They do not know over what they stumble." So the Lord wants us to understand these two very distinct paths. So let's make a couple comments about these paths. Number one, the paths are described with what they yield, or what the traveler will encounter. And so in chapter 3, we'll go back just a page, verse 13, "Blessed is the one who finds wisdom, and the one who gets understanding. For the gain from her is better than gain from silver, and her profit better than gold. She is more precious than jewels, and nothing you desire can compare with her. Long life is in her right hand." So if you circle in your Bible or you underline things that the path of wisdom will yield, you have long life. It is in her right hand. In her left hand are riches and honor. Her ways are ways of pleasantness, and all her paths are peace. She is a tree of life to those who lay hold of her. Those who hold her fast are called blessed. It's quite a list there of what is produced or what is generated on the path of wisdom. The path of the wicked also produces something. Follow along, chapter 4, verse 14. "Do not enter the path of the wicked, and do not walk in the way of the evil. Avoid it. Do not go on it. Turn away from it and pass on. For they cannot sleep unless they have done wrong. They are robbed of sleep unless they have made someone stumble. For they eat the bread of wickedness and drink the wine of violence." That's pretty graphic, isn't it? In contrast, verse 19 or 18, "But the path of the righteous is like the light of dawn, which shines brighter and brighter until full day. The way of the wicked is like deep darkness, and they do not know over what they stumble." Well, that's one truth about the paths. Here's the second. The paths are described with what they will cost the traveler. In chapter 6, verse 32, of course I haven't explored this all. There will be more passages like it. "He who commits adultery lacks sense. He who does it destroys himself." What will it cost him? Destroys himself. "He will get wounds and dishonor." What will you find on the path of wisdom? Pleasantness, honor. You just read it. Here there will be dishonor, there will be wounds, and his disgrace or his shame will not be wiped away. You have another one. Chapter 7, verse 21. "With much seductive speech, she persuades him. With her smooth talk, she compels him. All at once he follows her, as an ox goes to the slaughter." What will it cost him? Right? "Or as a stag is caught fast, till an arrow pierces its liver. As a bird rushes into a snare, he does not know that it will cost him his life. There's the cost. So the paths are described with what they will cost the traveler. Here's a third truth with regard to understanding these two distinct paths. Number 3, the paths are further described when they're as to where they finally end. In other words, their destiny. We're back in chapter 5, verse 11. And at the end of your life, you groan when your flesh and body are consumed, and you say, "How I hated discipline, and my heart despised reproof. I did not listen to the voice of my teachers, or incline my ear to my instructors. I am at the brink of utter ruin." In the assembled congregation. So here's this person who's living with regret. He's looking back at his life, or she's looking back at her life, resisted the instruction that was given, and there is now utter ruin. Destiny. Here's the fourth truth that we need to know about these two paths. These two paths are more than a single decision in life. It's not as though we should be looking at these two paths, and it's like a fork in the road, and we're standing there about to make a decision, and we think, if I make one decision, that will now be the guarantee for the rest of my future. Or if I go left, it'll be the, one decision kind of settles it all. That's not how we should look at this. Whether the traveler chooses the path of wisdom, or whether the traveler chooses the path of evil, there are other options along those paths. And so one path will lead to another fork in the road. And then, if the person takes the right or the left, there will be another fork in the road. Or if he took this one, there will be another fork. And there will be more and more and more. And there's a continuous series of crossroads that a person takes. Whether we take the path initially for wisdom, or whether we take initially the path for evil. So let me try and illustrate that. You have the account of King Solomon. And he chooses in 1 Kings chapter 3 to be a humble-hearted man. While there's error in some of his thinking, and the high places are not destroyed, the high places were pagan places of worship. And he doesn't dismiss them all, yet there is in his heart a tenderness. And you see that tenderness, we read it just a moment ago. "Give your servant therefore an understanding mind to govern your people, that I may discern between good and evil. For who is able to govern this, your great people?" What a tender moment. And you think, Solomon, you really hit it well. Of all the things you could have asked, you asked something so valuable. But by the time you and I get to 1 Kings chapter 11, something drastically has happened. Would you see it with me? 1 Kings chapter 11. Verse 1. Now King Solomon loved many foreign women, along with the daughter of Pharaoh, Moabite, Ammonite, Edomite, Sidonian, and Hittite women, from the nations concerning which the Lord had said to the people of Israel, "You shall not enter into marriage with them, neither shall they with you." By the way, why? Because of the power of influence. Right? For surely they will turn away your heart after their gods. And you notice there, that's the first mention in verse 2 about the heart. The heart is not the little muscle now that pumps in our chest. This is the unit or the control center for our lives. It's like our mind. Love the Lord your God with all your heart. Right? As a man 700 wives, princesses, and 300 concubines. And his wives turned away his heart. And when Solomon was old, his wives turned away his heart after other gods, and his heart was not wholly true to the Lord his God, as was the heart of David his father. For Solomon went after Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Sidonians, and after Milcom, the abomination of the Ammonites. So Solomon did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, and did not wholly or totally follow the Lord as David his father had done. And if you look at verse 9, and the Lord was angry with Solomon, because his heart had turned away from the Lord, the God of Israel, who had appeared to him twice. In other words, this man had a privilege. He was given divine instruction, and he was told what to do and how to handle life. Solomon, in earlier days, was the one who wrote the text, Proverbs 4:23. Above all else, guard your heart, for out of it are the issues of life. He's the one that wrote that. But he's not the one who followed it. Which means that he made a wise choice. But then as life went on, he came to the fork in the road, and he chose wrong, and he chose wrong, and he made 999 mistakes. The text is clear. There were more forks in the road. And all of us, when we come to these two paths, we need to consider that it's not just one decision that makes it for the rest of life. You and I will face some forks in the road maybe this week. I kind of think that's what will happen. It seems to me that when I preach on a subject, the Lord tests me about it later in the week. How will I handle some choices this week? So what I'm trying to illustrate here is that one initial choice does not guarantee the destiny of the traveler. You can take the account of Manasseh. He was the son of Hezekiah. And the Bible says in 2 Chronicles that he burned his son as an offering. He used fortune telling and omens and sorcery and dealt with mediums and with necromancers. He did much evil in the sight of the Lord, provoking God to anger. That's 2 Chronicles chapter 33, verse 6. But then difficulties came into Manasseh's life. And he couldn't beat it. He was led with a hook in his nose to captivity. God got his attention. And you know what we read? And when Manasseh was in distress, he entreated the favor of the Lord his God and humbled himself greatly before the God of his fathers. He prayed to him, and God was moved by his entreaty and heard his plea and brought him again to Jerusalem to his kingdom. And God brought about a tenderness in that hard part. So while Manasseh initially chose wrong and did evil, he came to another fork in the road. And at some point, he made a wiser choice. So to live wisely, the path of wisdom must be chosen again and again and again. Because there are ongoing crossroads, and you and I will continue to meet them. Well, that's number 4. Here's number 5. When it comes to the forks in the road, not all choices are of the same significance. Right? Some have greater implications. Some choices have greater consequences. Well, that's a story by itself. So we'll move to number 6. When it comes to understanding these two paths, the traveler, number 6, who takes the path of evil and again chooses to resist the call of wisdom, can get to a point of no return. At some point, the Pharaoh that we read about during the days of Moses had such the God of heaven is gracious. However, when wisdom is shunned and rejected repeatedly, at some point, Proverbs 1, starting at verse 24, becomes a reality. This is Proverbs chapter 1, verse 24. This is wisdom speaking. Because I have called you, and you refuse to listen, and have stretched out my hand, and no one has heeded, because you have ignored all my counsel, and would have none of my reproof, I also will laugh at your calamity. I will mock when terror strikes you, when terror strikes you like a storm, and your calamity comes like a whirlwind, when distress and anguish come upon you. Then they will call upon me, but I will not answer. They will seek me diligently, but will not find me, because they hated knowledge, and did not choose the fear of the Lord, would have none of my counsel, and despised all my reproof. And so that's a reality. So the book of Proverbs invites, it appeals, it calls, it shouts to the traveler to do what? To seek wisdom. So in chapter 3, verse 13, it's like one of those moments. Blessed is the one who finds wisdom, and the one who gets understanding. That for the gain from her is better than gain from silver, and her profit better than gold. How about chapter 8? Start at verse 1. Does not wisdom call? The answer is yes. Does not understanding raise her voice? And the implied answer is yes. On the heights, beside the way, at the crossroads, she takes her stand. Beside the gates, in front of the town, at the entrance of the portals, she cries aloud. To you, O man, I call, and my cry is to the children of men. Let's go to verse 18. It's part of the call or the cry or the appeal of wisdom. This is chapter 8, verse 18. Riches and honor are with me, enduring wealth and righteousness. My fruit is better than gold, even fine gold, and my yield than choice silver. And so there is wisdom calling the traveler to make wise choices. Well, that's a brief understanding of those two distinct paths. You could go through the book of Proverbs and it continually talks about those two different paths. Path of righteousness or the path of unrighteousness. The Proverbs provides very clear advice about what we are to do when we get to those frequent crossroads. In fact, Proverbs has a number of verses that talk about what is better. In fact, that's what I chose to do through the rest of my sermon. I didn't choose them all, because then we'll be here too long. But it makes a distinction between this or this, and what is better. What is better? So that's how I'm going to go through the rest of my sermon. Selecting the wise path. Here's number 1. Choose wisdom over wealth. In Proverbs chapter 8, verse 11, we read these words. For wisdom is better than rubies or jewels, and all the things that may be desired are not to be compared to it. In other words, wisdom is in a category uniquely of its own. Nothing else can even come close. Proverbs never tells us to get rich. The text never tells us to set our heart on getting wealthy. Instead, Proverbs tells us to take great strides to be wise. It says, make sacrifices if necessary, but get wisdom. Do all you can do to get that. Proverbs 15, verse 16 says, better a little. No, better to have a smaller bank account. That's the idea. Better a little with the than great wealth with turmoil. In other words, he's saying, choose wisdom or choose the Lord over money. Proverbs 16:16 says, how much better to get wisdom than gold? To get understanding is to be chosen rather than silver. And then you have Proverbs chapter 23, verses 4 and 5. And it's like a passage of caution. Proverbs 23, verses 4 and 5. Do not weary yourself to gain wealth. In other words, don't wear yourself out to get rich. Cease from your consideration of it. In other words, stop making it the focus of your life. When you set your eyes on it, it is gone. In other words, money doesn't last. It's temporary. For wealth, going on with the verse, for wealth certainly makes itself wings, like an eagle that flies toward the heavens. That's quite a graphic picture. So let me ask a question. Does money talk? Yes. It says goodbye. It gets wings. It's gone. But our world pushes to get money, to get wealth, to be in a higher class, to have a better house, to live on a certain side of the city. Some years back, I heard an interesting story about the pursuit of money. And the story went something like this. An industrialist who was on vacation to some remote island was horrified to find a fisherman lying beside his boat, smoking his pipe. What's an industrialist? We better define that. We're going to call that person a powerful businessman who owns and controls large industrial companies and factories. And his life is focused on productivity. Make money, get ahead, because the bottom line counts. And it's all connected to dollar signs. So you've got to make money. There's got to be profit. That's the industrialist. And so there he sees this fisherman resting on the beach, his boat's up there on the shore, and here's what happened in the conversation. Why aren't you fishing? Asked the industrialist. Because I've caught enough fish for the day, said the fisherman. But why don't you catch some more? To which the relaxed fisherman said, what would I do with them? Well, said the businessman, you'd earn more money. And what would I do then? Came the response. Well, then you could buy a motor. And you could attach it to your boat. And what would I do then? Well, you'd go into deeper waters and you'd catch more fish. And what would I do then? Well, that would bring you money. And you could buy nylon nets. And then you could catch more fish. And then you'd have more money. Still in his relaxed position, the fisherman asked, what would I do then? Well, soon you would have enough money to buy 2 boats. Even a fleet of boats. And then you could be rich like me, said the vacationing businessman. And what would I do then? Well, then you could sit back and enjoy life. To which the fisherman said, what do you think I'm doing now? But our world pushes to get money and get more and more and more. Get wealth. And Proverbs is what our world shows. And Proverbs shows, get wisdom. It's better to live on less and maintain a reverent respect for God than for you and me to have a lot of money and the things that money can buy and to be void of wisdom. God knows the things we need, but his command is still the same. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added to you. That's Matthew chapter 6, verse 33. It's not wrong to have money. But any supposed promotion that will end up causing distance between us and our Lord, or that will interfere in living wisely, are not promotions. God says it is better to have a little with the fear of the Lord than great wealth with turmoil. Well, that's crossroads number one. Here's the second crossroads. Choose authenticity over pretense. Proverbs 12 verse 9 says, better to be a nobody. Maybe you want to point it there. Better to be a nobody and yet have a servant than pretend to be somebody and have no food. Or better to be lowly and have a servant than to play the great man and lack bread. That's the ESV. In life, we often come to the crossroads of what will others think of us. And to have others think well of us, mankind has the tendency to inflate the story, to exaggerate in order to impress, to pretend to know certain things rather than to ask for help, to pretend to be victorious when inside they're addicted to sin. And the text here at this crossroads is this: choose to be real, choose to be genuine rather than a phony, choose to be authentic rather than an actor. Movies are for actors. That's the pretend world. If they don't like the setting the first time, they just shoot another series and they kind of get the event that they want there on the scenes. That's the pretend world. But manhood and womanhood and parenting and marriages and church are for people who deal honestly with life. How it's meant to be. We need to resist all tendencies to hide behind masks. We need to refuse to operate with disguise. When we come to the crossroads of whether it is real or whether we just pretend, we need to choose the better way. We choose to be real. We choose to be authentic. It takes humility to live on that path. But that's the wise path. When I worked in the trades, they sent a young man with us, and there were 4 on our crew. And so the foreman told me that he said he would take one man under his wing, and he says, this new young man, he said, I want you to take him under your wing, and told us what the project would be for the day. And so there I have this young man, I haven't worked with him before, he's new to the company, and so we have to do some framing, and we have a framing gun. And I asked him if he's familiar with this, and oh yeah, I've done this for years. I worked on roofing, I've done this, and told me the places where he worked. And so the hand gestures and the confidence with which he spoke, I said, look, I'm sorry, I don't want you to insult you in any way. I don't want you to berate you. I just don't know what you already know. He was familiar with it all. So there it is. I'm working there, he's working somewhere else. A little while later he comes to me, and it wasn't very long. He said, with this roofing nail, how do you put nails in this thing? How do you put nails into a roofing nail? And you've done it for years? Who am I dealing with? Somebody who's not authentic. A pretender. Somebody who will exaggerate and make himself look great. But I didn't initially have the humility to say, look, this is new. You might tell me what I need to do here. The path of wisdom is the path of humility. Well, that's crossroad number 2. Here's crossroad number 3. Choose peace and love over possessions. Proverbs 15, verse 17. Better is a dinner of herbs where love is than a stalled ox and hatred therewith. This is 15 verse 17. Maybe your version reads it a little different. Better is a dinner of serve. Love operates with gentle voices. And there's joy, just the joy of being together, and that's the setting. Better a dinner of herbs where love is. In contrast, there's another home. These folks owned a fattened ox, but they didn't have love. They had hatred. And hatred does what? It seeks to destroy. It seeks to hurt others. Hatred rejects rather than accepts others. The meal times in this home would be endured rather than enjoyed. And the point of this text is this: choose peace and love over luxuries. Choose to develop healthy relationships over acquiring fancy externals. It is not as important what is set on the table as the condition of the relationships around the table. That's why he's saying, choose peace and love over possessions, over all these fancy things. Proverbs 17, verse 1. Better is a dry morsel and quietness. No, it's calm. It's peaceful. Therewith, than a house full of sacrifices with strife. Okay. Choose peace and love and healthy relationships over possessions. So Proverbs teaches us that relationships of love and peace is better than the fancy delicacies that can be purchased and served on the table. Here's crossroads number 4. Choose honorable character over materialism. In Proverbs 16, verse 8, we read these words. Better is a little with righteousness than great revenues with injustice. In other words, it's better to have a little and to have gained it honestly than to have much that is gained like that, by shoplifting, by stealing, by taking things from the boss. Proverbs 19, verse 1. Better is the poor that walketh in his integrity than he that is perverse in his lips and is a fool. In other words, honorable character is better than money. How about Proverbs 19, verse 22? The desire of a man is his kindness, and a poor man is better than a liar. That's Proverbs 19, verse 22. In other words, a kind, poor man is more desirable than a rich man who is a liar. That's pretty clear. So what is it? This is a character issue. And even when a liar makes an oath that he's not telling the truth, you can't be sure if he's being honest. Character. Proverbs 28, verse 6. Better is the poor that walketh in his uprightness. Right? Doesn't have a big bank account, doesn't have a fancy vehicle, but he walks in honorable character than he that is perverse in his ways, though he be rich. Well, we looked at 4 crossroads. Have you noticed that so many of the verses that we've considered have to do with money and possessions? As we come to the forks in the road in our lives, often there are dollar signs that are involved. Money can distract us from what's really valuable. Wealth, and even promised wealth, can seek to overshadow character. Money and dollar signs can interfere in making wise decisions. So at the crossroads, we need to choose honorable character over materialism or possessions. Well, let's go to number 5. One more crossroad. Choose to identify with the nobodies rather than the crowd. Proverbs 16:19 says it this way. It is better to be of a lowly spirit with the poor. A lowly spirit would be like a person who's humble. With the poor, than to divide the spoil with the proud. So the text here is calling our attention to our associations, our friends, who we are connected with. And while it's not addressed here in this verse, God's children are to be friendly to everybody, but not everybody should become our deep and soul-influencing partner. Right? Think of Solomon. Not everybody should become our deep, soul-influencing partner. The first few days of Bible college for me, and for many others, involved something that they called freshman orientation. And there we sat in the chapel for several days, and they gave us a host of instructions. Went through the rule book of the school, and one of the faculty members told us that we should not run away from the school because we were in Saskatchewan, and they would still see us on the horizon in 3 days. That was good advice, right? But one of the speakers was the president. I shall not forget this. One of the startling statements he made went something like this: choose your friends well. Not everyone who enrolls here comes to study the Bible. I was shocked. But he was right. Be careful. Just because the setting is a Bible college doesn't mean that every person there should become a soul-influencing person. There are two distinct categories here in this verse. When we go to chapter 16, verse 19, there are the humble and the poor, and there are the rich and the proud. And it is better to be partners with the humble and the poor. That's what he's saying. Why? Because the proud value themselves, and they want you to know it. They make of importance what they possess, where they've been and what they've done. The proud can have damaging influence on the unsuspecting. So when choosing soul-influencing friends, we need to look for honorable character, regardless of what they drive, or what kind of house they live in, or what kind of clothes they buy. We look for character when it comes to soul-influencing friends. Well, here's number 6. Choose to manage your inner world rather than pursuing some great feat. For all those who are going to listen to this without your outline, I better spell the word feat. F-E-E-T is not what I'm getting at. Some great feat has to do with some great achievement that requires courage and skill and strength. So in Proverbs 16, verse 32, we read these words: whoever is slow to anger is better than the mighty, and he who rules his spirit, it's implied, is better than he who takes a city. So the verse here speaks about conquering. The mighty are the brave and the courageous. That's the first little reference there, the mighty. And then he that taketh a city, what would that be? Well, probably a military hero. You know, he's going to be famous. He'll be looked up to for his skill and his courage and his strategy. And the mighty and he that takes a city, they do all this where? Kind of on the public platform. Everybody notices. But this verse also talks about conquerors who aren't so public, but they succeed privately. Okay, so who's the first conqueror? first one in this verse is the one who conquers their attitude of anger. Right? And the second conqueror is the one who rules his spirit. Doesn't fly off the handle, so to speak. And both of these conquerors are more private. And they don't get noticed as much. So this is a good time for me to kind of explain something that would have been helpful, very helpful for me, because each of us has an inner world and an outer world. And each of us has to manage those two worlds. It's possible for the demands of our outer world to get most of our attention, and it's possible for us then to neglect our inner world. And it was Gordon MacDonald who helped me understand the differences between these two worlds. And not an exact quote of his at all, but he defined it something like this. Our outer world is much more public. It's easier to deal with. It's more measurable and more visible. It consists of our career, our work, our title, or status. It consists of our possessions and our social networks of friends and family. Our outer world is the easiest to evaluate in terms of success or popularity or wealth or beauty. And all of us have this public outer world. You have it, I have it. And so, maybe for some people, their outer world includes how weedless their garden is. Right? Their outer world is how neat their home is. How recently did they wash their vehicle? You know? And a host of other things. That's their outer world. We all have that. Our inner world is more private. It's more invisible. It is more spiritual in nature, and it is the center where choices and values are made. And it's where we reflect and evaluate. It's a place for the worship of God, and it's a place of God consciousness, and all of us have this inner space, this inner world. And the majority of us are taught to manage well our outer world. Right? That has to be the focus, we are told. So we take courses to get a career. We take courses to handle money. We read books to manage our time. We choose methods and systems and plans and styles because this public world screams for our attention and it screams for our action. And from the outside, it may look as though we're in control. We're well managed. We're organized. We've got it together. And we may even make the assumption that the person who is well organized on the outside is also well organized on the inside. And that, my friends, can be a mistaken assumption. The fact of the matter is that our private world often gets neglected. And sometimes it gets cheated because it doesn't shout so loud. In fact, our private world can be effectively ignored for large periods of time before it gives way to a sinkhole-like syndrome. There is this outer world. There is also an inner world. The outer world speaks of personal importance, where we've been, with whom we've had our picture taken, our achievements, and when the focus is all on the outer world. The outer world can become bigger than our character. It's possible to place more effort on the externals of our lives, and we can then neglect the development and the maintenance of our inner world. Did I go too fast? If I gave you a name or two, you'd understand. When ministry gets bigger than character, you have Zacharias. When ministry gets bigger than character, you have Steve Lawson. Right? That's what I'm getting at. People don't usually give trophies and certificates of accomplishment for controlling our anger. or for controlling a greedy heart, or for cultivating a teachable spirit. That's all on the inside. But for all the things you can win on the inside. Win on the inside. Be a victorious conqueror of your private world. Win on the inside. That's what this verse is talking about. It's possible to be chasing so many things in our outer world that the inner world gets neglected. Well, here's one more crossroad, and it's going to be short. Choose humility over self-promotion. In Proverbs chapter 25, verses 6 and 7. Proverbs 25, 6 and 7. Choose humility over self-promotion. Do not put yourself forward in the king's presence, or stand in the place of the great, for it is better to be told, come up here, than to be put lower in the presence of a noble. Right? That one's fairly clear. Self-promotion is not the wise path. That's the wrong direction. So in any day or in any week, we come to a fork in the road that requires a decision. And it's there that we have to consider some important things. What will this path yield? What will it cost me? Right? Are there any hidden snares? Where will it ultimately lead? How will my decision influence those who follow in my footprints? And according to God, which one is better? Right? Not according to the world's values, but according to God. When I stand before him, will he be pleased, or will he, in the case of Solomon, be angry? And it's that better path that we're called to select again and again and again. That's the path of wisdom. So let me wrap it up with two verses. Proverbs chapter 4, verse 26. I want to focus on that one. But it's good for us to start at verse 23. Depending on your version, it may say something like this. Above all else, guard your heart, for out of it are the issues of life. Or maybe it says, keep your heart with all vigilance. In other words, this has to be a big focus. This is going to be your major pursuit. For from it flow the springs of life. Put away from you crooked speech, and put devious talk far from you. Let your eyes look directly forward, and your gaze be straight before you. Ponder, here it is, verse 26. Ponder the path of your feet. In other words, my next decision, is this going to be wise? Is this going to be God-honoring? Is this going to be the best decision I can make with the information I have? Ponder the path of your feet. Then all your ways will be sure. Do not swerve to the right or to the left. Turn your foot away from evil. And that's one. Here's the second, Ephesians 5:15. Look carefully then how you walk, not as unwise, but as wise, redeeming the time, for the days are evil. Well, I hope that's been an encouragement for you. Maybe you sat through this and you thought, praise the Lord. This is confirming. Right? This is very confirming. You made wise choices, and now you found encouragement. And maybe you have decisions to make that are jerking on you, and you're torn about what to do. But we choose the path of wisdom. Let's pray. Father in heaven, you're so gracious with us. You speak to us through your word in a language we can understand.
So grateful, Father, for the text. So grateful, Father, that even in preparation for me, you taught me things, told me exactly what I needed to do. And so, Lord, for all of our church family and our guests, I ask, oh God, that we will hold fast to these truths, we would ponder our steps, and we would make wise choices. Father, thank you that you're the God who works in us both to will and to do of your good pleasure. And so the choices we make are not completely solitary, not all completely on our own in an isolated vacuum, but you are there, and you help us. Thank you, Father, for giving us wisdom without ever calling us out for having come again and asking for more. And so, Lord, for the crossroads that we will face this week, we're grateful, Father, for them. You will shape us in our faith and in our trust, and we will glorify you. Thank you, Father, for the songs we could sing earlier. Sing about God getting the glory. Sing about our great Redeemer. Sing about, yet not I, but Christ through me. And to this we hold. And all those truths that we sang in addition to that. Thank you, Lord, for our time to worship together. Lord, when this service is officially dismissed, we get to serve each other. And so I pray, Lord, that you give us all a tender heart, a caring mindset, and help us to be each other's encouragers as we face another week to be stars